60 years of no comment, then, bam. An 88-year-old legend leans in and says 4 words nobody saw coming. Lola was everything. Not the Sundance empire, not the Oscars, not the jawline that launched a million posters. Lola. The Utah girl who married a broke set painter for $5 and a tank of gas. Tonight, the story he swore he'd take to the grave is finally breathing, and it begins with 2 teenagers, a borrowed Buick, and a Vegas chapel that reeked of motor oil. August 1957, L.A., Redford's 20, painting flats for gas money, surfing couches like it's an Olympic sport. Lola's 17, fresh off the bus from Provo, quiet in the way that makes you check your own pulse. Santa Monica party. He spots her across the room, asks for her number. She scribbles it on a napkin, dead serious. Don't lose this. 3. Weeks later, he's proposing in the front seat of a borrowed Buick because the back was full of paint cans. Vegas, 2 a.m. $10 chapel fee, they've got 5. The janitor slips them a $5, muttering, "Just don't tell the boss." No rings, no flash, just 2 kids betting the rent on each other. They land in a Harlem walk-up where the radiator sounds like an angry cat. He paints walls. She types. Term papers for $1 a page. Neighbors swear they're siblings. Blonde, broke, and crazy in love. October 59. Baby Scott shows up early, lungs like a trumpet solo. 4 months later, Lola walks into the nursery and time stops. No medical word for it yet. Just, sometimes babies stop. They bury him in a onesie she'd sewn during a blackout. Redford carries the casket alone, says he couldn't stand strangers touching his boy. That night, he paces the hallway humming lullabies so he doesn't scream the walls down. Lola rocks an empty chair till sunrise, swearing she hears breathing. Everyone bets the marriage folds. Instead, it welds. They decide the only sane answer to random cruelty is more life. 3 kids in 6 years, each birth a quiet rebellion against statistics. 67. Barefoot in the Park audition. Studio wants polished. He shows up sunburned, barefoot, shrugs. This is what you get. They got it. Overnight, the painter becomes the poster boy. Lola stays in New York, coupon clipping, fending off gossip hounds. Butch Cassidy ignites. Paparazzi on the stoop like raccoons at trash night. He buys a Utah ranch for breathing room. The chopper pilots just follow the dust. Sunday pancakes become a telephoto sport. Lola tells a pal, "I signed up for a man, not a billboard." Marriage turns long distance by accident. He's on location. She's juggling 4 kids and a mailbox full of bills the studio bean counters keep promising will balance out. 1973. He misses Amy's first birthday. The eye sting needs reshoots. Telegram on the fridge, "Happy birthday, Angel. Daddy loves you." Paper curls like a dead leaf. By 76, their relationship runs on answering machine cassettes and accountant memos. He learns to ski, sail, anything with goggles that keeps questions out. Lola heads to night school, aces classes between pediatrician runs, graduates summa. In 77, the same year he buys a Malibu pad as an investment. Translation: a place she isn't asked to decorate. 1981. Oscars. They smile for cameras, ride home in separate cars. Friends swear nobody cheated. The betrayal was distance so vast it felt like vanishing. Thanksgiving, 82. Ranch kitchen, snow, stacking outside. Kids asleep. He says, "I think we've turned into ghosts." She answers, "Then let's bury us before we spook the children." Separation papers filed the next week. Divorce drags 3 years. Custody, property, and a clause that reads like poetry. Both parties agree not to speak ill of the other in any medium, including memory. He moves full-time to Utah. She stays east, finishes a master's, keeps the last name until the diplomas are framed, 90s. Sundance rises, indie film's new pope. He dates, never long, never Lola. Reporters learn, mention her, interviews over. She earns a PhD, produces docs, marries a geothermal scientist in 2002. Invitation reads, "No gifts, just good vibes." Redford mails an unsigned card. She clocks the handwriting instantly. 2005. A stray question about legacy. Redford, 68, sighs, "Career's fine, but sharing a life with someone who knew you before you were anybody? That's the gold." Clip airs once, drowned by Oscar buzz. Lola sees it, phones the kids. "Tell your father some stones are better left unturned." Truth, once loose, refuses to scurry back. November 2022. Documentary crew, standard retrospective. Interviewer flips the script. "If you could relive one chapter?" Room goes still. He slips off the glasses, eyes glassy but steady. "I'd sit at that kitchen table again. I'd shut up and listen. Lola was the heartbeat. I was just the face. Fame flirts and leaves. Lola stayed. She was and is the love of my life." Producer asks if he wants it cut. He shrugs. "Let it ride. Maybe keep some kid from letting go too soon." Clip leaks. Headlines sob redemption. Comment sections turn into group therapy. Lola, 82, declines press, tells a friend, "Bob always had a poet in there. Glad the guy finally cut the engine and let him speak." Mortality's a heck of an editor. Current wife Sibyl nudged the honesty along. Secrets rot the beams. Desk photo. Lola, 1960, hair whipping in canyon wind, beside a snapshot of grandkids, bookends to a life that nearly flew off the rails. No second-act romance, no staged reconciliation, just an old man pinning the map where the storm started. Hollywood wants fairy tale endings. Real life settles for truth before the credits roll. So when the clickbait caravan moves on, here's what sticks. Two broke teenagers once vowed to outrun sorrow, made it halfway around the track, then let honesty finish the race. Redford's confession doesn't erase later loves or wins. It anchors them to the first, fiercest promise. Who's your Lola? The one you'd thank if pride stepped aside. Drop it in the comments. And maybe tonight dial that number you still know by heart. Speak the line you rehearse in the shower, because at 88 or 28, the only words we regret are the ones we bury. Bradley Pitt was born in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and raised in Springfield, Missouri. A boy from the Midwest who dreamed bigger than the small-town life around him. In college, he studied journalism, but Hollywood was calling, and with just $325 in his pocket, he packed his bags and drove to Los Angeles. He worked odd jobs, chauffeuring, strippers, moving refrigerators, even dressing up as a giant chicken for a fast food chain. It was a far cry from the glamorous life he would later lead, but Brad was determined. The dream was too powerful to ignore. In 1991, that dream came alive. A small role in Thelma and Louise changed everything. Just 14 minutes of screen time made him a star. Hollywood had found its new golden boy. Through the 90s and 2000s, Pitt became more than just an actor. He became a symbol. Legends of the Fall cast him as the ultimate romantic hero. Fight Club made him the face of rebellion, and Ocean's 11 proved his effortless charm could carry blockbusters. He wasn't just successful, he was untouchable. Pitt was crowned sexiest man alive not once, but twice. Every step he took was documented, every romance speculated upon. But fame is a double-edged sword. Behind the dazzling image of perfection was a man under relentless pressure. Hollywood didn't just want Brad Pitt, it demanded he remain flawless. He often downplayed the attention, but those close to him knew he struggled. In interviews, he admitted to feeling trapped by his own image, as if the world saw Brad Pitt the superstar, but never Brad Pitt the man. With fame came scrutiny. Every love story became headline news. Every career choice, a gamble for legacy. And though his rise seemed like a fairy tale, the seeds of heartbreak were already being planted. The higher the climb, the harder the fall. Brad Pitt's rise was nothing short of meteoric, but as we'll see, the glare of the spotlight can burn brighter than anyone can bear. And the man who had everything was about to face losses that no fame could protect him from. In the late 90s, Brad Pitt seemed to have it all. A career at its peak and a love story straight out of a Hollywood script. His relationship with Jennifer Aniston was portrayed as picture perfect. Two of the most famous faces in the world, madly in love. The tabloids called them America's sweethearts. Fans believed they had found the fairy tale ending. But behind the glossy magazine covers, pressures were building. Their marriage was constantly scrutinized, dissected, and judged. Every public smile was analyzed for hidden cracks, and in 2005, the cracks became impossible to ignore. Their split stunned the world. Rumors swirled, whispers that Brad had grown close to his Mr. and Mrs. Smith co-star, Angelina Jolie. What should have been a private heartbreak became a global scandal. Jennifer Aniston was painted as the heartbroken victim, while Brad and Angelina were cast as the guilty lovers. For Brad, the fallout was brutal. His private life was no longer his own. It was a soap opera played out in front of millions. While he tried to build a new family with Angelina, the shadow of betrayal never faded. With Angelina, Brad found a new sense of purpose. Together they adopted children from around the world and had biological children of their own, creating one of Hollywood's most famous families. For a time, it seemed Brad had finally found stability. But in 2016, the illusion shattered. Angelina Jolie filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The news was explosive, but what came after was even more devastating. A bitter custody battle over their 6 children began. Allegations surfaced, painting Brad as a troubled father struggling with anger and alcohol. For a man once celebrated as Hollywood's perfect leading man, the headlines were brutal. His reputation, his family, and his peace of mind all crumbled in the public eye. The once golden image of Brad Pitt now carried the scars of scandal. He had gone from the adored movie star to a man fighting for his role as a father. And while the world speculated, only Brad knew the depth of the heartbreak he was enduring. The story of Brad Pitt's love life was never just about romance. It was about the unbearable cost of fame, the way private heartbreaks are magnified under public judgment. He had loved deeply, lost painfully, and been left to rebuild while the world watched. By the time his marriage to Angelina Jolie collapsed, Brad Pitt was facing a battle far more personal than any custody hearing. It was a fight within himself, a struggle against demons he had carried silently for years. In candid interviews after the divorce, Brad admitted what many had only speculated. Alcohol had become a crutch. He revealed nights lost to drinking, moments of anger he could not control, and a deep sense of shame. "I can't remember a day since college when I wasn't drinking," he confessed. To the world, this was shocking. To Brad, it was a painful truth he could no longer hide. Alcohol was more than a habit. It was a prison. It dulled the pain, but it also stripped him of joy. In his lowest moments, Pitt turned to therapy and recovery programs. He began attending Alcoholics Anonymous, sitting in circles with strangers, shedding the image of the movie star and speaking simply as Brad, the man who was trying to heal. He described the process as humbling. For someone who had spent decades in the spotlight, it was a return to vulnerability, a reminder that beneath the fame, he was just as fragile as anyone else. But even as he worked on himself, the deepest wound remained, his relationship with his children. Reports of estrangement, particularly with his eldest son, Maddox, painted a heartbreaking picture. The man who once seemed to have the perfect family was now struggling to hold it together. The very role he longed for most, the role of father, was slipping from his grasp. Friends spoke of his loneliness. Though his career remained strong, his personal life was in ruins. Nights once filled with parties and glamour were replaced with quiet solitude. His sprawling mansions felt empty. The world saw Brad Pitt, the movie star. But behind closed doors, he was just Brad, a man searching for forgiveness and connection. It was this vulnerability that shocked fans. The man who had defined strength and masculinity on screen was admitting his weaknesses. He wasn't Tyler Durden from Fight Club. He wasn't Achilles from Troy. He was human, and he was hurting. Yet in his pain, there was also resilience. Pitt channeled his struggles into art, delivering one of his greatest performances in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. For many, it felt like a rebirth. A man rising from ashes, carrying scars but still standing tall. At 61, Brad Pitt has achieved what most actors only dream of: an Academy Award for acting, countless accolades as a producer, and a legacy of films that span 3 decades. To the world, he has reached the pinnacle of success. But as the applause fades and the spotlight dims, the truth becomes harder to ignore. Success has not erased his loneliness. In 2019, Pitt delivered a career-defining performance in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. His portrayal of stuntman Cliff Booth was raw, understated, and deeply human. It earned him his first Oscar for acting. On stage, he joked and smiled, but many noted his acceptance speech carried a quiet sadness. For a man surrounded by millions, he seemed strangely alone. Even in triumph, shadows lingered. His children, once always by his side, were absent from the most important night of his career. The painful reminder that while Hollywood celebrated him, his personal life remained fractured. In recent years, Pitt has sought solace outside of Hollywood. He has spoken about finding peace in art, architecture, and sculpture. Long hours in his studio have become his therapy, a way to channel the emotions words cannot express. But those close to him say the silence is telling. His vast homes, once filled with the laughter of children, often echo with emptiness. Visual, aerial shots of his Los Feliz estate, followed by close-ups of Brad walking through an art installation. Hollywood, too, has changed. The leading man who once embodied youth and desire now faces an industry obsessed with the next generation. Though still admired, Pitt is no longer the fresh face of the 90s. Aging in an industry that worships eternal youth brings its own isolation. Friends say he is reflective these days, more philosopher than movie star. He speaks about forgiveness, about growth, about trying to live a life of meaning. But he has also admitted that growing older brings a unique kind of solitude. The friendships fade, the romances collapse, and the spotlight no longer feels like home. And yet, even in this chapter of loneliness, Brad Pitt continues to work, to create, to inspire. He remains a powerful force in cinema, not just as an actor, but as a producer, championing stories others might overlook. But the tragedy lies in what's missing. For all the awards, the wealth, the admiration, there remains a void, a longing for family, for stability, for the kind of love that isn't fleeting. At 61, Brad Pitt has proven he can survive the storms of Hollywood. But survival comes with scars. His reinvention is real, his artistry undeniable. And yet, beneath the achievements lies a man still searching for peace, haunted by the heartbreaks of his past. Music swells. Teaser. Text fades in. Final chapter, The Cost of Greatness.